Hey guys, we're back. This time we're going to be taking a look at Dungeon Drop Deluxe. It's the deluxe edition. And it's a ton of game that comes in this tiny little box. And it's kind of cool, like an abstract dungeon crawl where you're making rooms and looting the dungeon while trying not to get yourself killed. And it's a lot of fun and ton of game, like I said, in a tiny little box. So we'll get right in and take a look. So inside the box, they actually put artwork on the inside of here because you're supposed to use this to pour stuff in and you're going to be drawing random things out of here to drop. But they put the artwork upside down since you're going to be holding it this way. Thought that was kind of funny. They took the time and effort to do it, but it's upside down. So in here we have a rulebook, which is deceptively small for the size of the game here. I think it's only like 10 pages. Yeah, 10 pages front to back. A couple of those are artwork, one's credits. There's a component list in the middle. But the actual game rules are super easy. And simple to go through there. Now I want to point out a couple of things. I've got a lot of extra stuff in here. I did get the deluxe version and it was a Kickstarter version on top of that, so there's a bunch of extra things that don't come in the base game, one of which being this bag. And this is either to put the pieces in here, you put the cubes in here so you can reach in, randomly draw one and drop it, as opposed to using the box lid. The bag unfortunately doesn't quite fit in there. It's got like a leather, I guess it's fake leather front where it's printed and it's creased and seamed all to hell. So I might just use this to set on my shelf anyway. It doesn't really fit in the box and it doesn't, I was hoping it was going to be like more cloth-like and much more flexible so I could stuff it in there. Anyway, that's an extra component. I think that was an add-on too. Another add-on which we'll get to. These you can buy just about anywhere. Little clip on the back and it's a string. These are great for checking your rooms. I wish it was white though, because if you play on any dark background like here, I don't even think you can see that on the camera. Barely. You can see it when you get closer, but yeah, one of those comes in handy for checking your room borders to see where what's inside the room outskirts. Again, that was an extra add-on, doesn't actually come with the base game. And then these components, the tokens and things, I'm not sure which is which, so we're going to lay all of them out real quick and then we'll go through them individually. I have mine all separated into bags for various things. These are the cubes you use to make up the dungeon. The smaller cubes, player tokens. These are part of the deluxe edition, I know. They're actual meeples with the characters on them, as opposed to using just the tokens here. Then there's a couple expansions I've got also mixed in here. So we're going to have to get to each one of those individually, because I know there's a bunch of difference in there. Also got card sleeves. They were an option on the Kickstarter, and because of the odd size of the cards, I went ahead and got the sleeves, and I'm glad I did. It came with plenty of extra and enough for all of the extra components. There's some promo card stuff in here, all the extra expansions and whatnot all have their own stuff. And it came with enough to cover all of those as well, which is nice. And the box perfectly fits the sleeve cards. It was actually designed for them. So that's nice too. Alright, where to begin? There's so much here. So I think the first thing we're going to go through are some of the cards. And we'll kind of build up as we go here. I already mentioned the rule book, so we'll leave that out there. So for the cards, the game is designed for 1 to 4 players, so they gave you 4 of the player turn cards. On the back has a cheat sheet which explains what each type of cube in the dungeon is. That's honestly the hardest part of this game, is to remember what's what and having these is very nice to quick reference. So you get 4 of those, 1 for each player. We've been messing around with playing with more than 4 players, and aside from having to change the number of cubes you drop each turn, there isn't much you have to change the player count. Next we have a scorecard for the teamwork mode and the solo mode. So the next things we have here are the race cards. Feels weird saying that, but each one of these contains a different race, some cute artwork, and a ability. This is also going to adjust your health that you have for the game, as well as your initiative order. And there's a ton of these to choose from. Again, I'm not positive if all of these come in the base game, or if some are just for the deluxe game, or if some are Kickstarter exclusives. I think those 2 might be Kickstarters. Definitely look into what it's supposed to have before you buy yours, so you don't get your hopes up. I'm not sure if any or all of these. The rule book says 15 race cards, which is what we have here, so it is possible that all of these come in all versions of the game. So, curious about that. I don't know if they go numbered 1 through 15 either. Well, there's a 0 in there, so who knows. But bunch of different variety in your race. Each of them has a different and unique ability, which combines with your class, which we have here, our class cards. And the class cards combine with your race to give you another ability, and you can use these abilities throughout the course of the game to get some cool effects. And the fact that there's so many of them, you mix and match each game. They're supposed to be dealt randomly, but until you come across some weird broken combos, it's fun to let people pick. Like, I like elves, I like archers. Elven archer is a no-brainer, but you can always deal them randomly, which is the way it's supposed to be done. And you come up with some interesting new combos every game. And then last year we have our quest cards. And each player is going to get, I think you get 2 of these, and you have to pick one. And this is basically how you're going to score for your game. So nobody knows how you're going to score. Each one, depending on what you have, makes certain cubes worth more, certain cubes are worth less. I think there's even one where you get bonuses for having sets, and so on. So only you know how your scoring is going to work, so people can't basically block whatever your intentions are to do. So in the core game, you have these characters and the tokens. Characters represent your guys, the tokens go on the score trackers, and I think a bunch of these are even blank. I don't use any of these because I have the deluxe edition of the game, so if you have the base edition, you're going to get these. And these have been upgraded in the deluxe. So I put mine aside. Same goes for these. You're going to have, I think, there's 10 of these small cubes. These are supposed to be your goblins. And then you have the trolls, as well as the big red dragon cube. And then the smaller ones are keys. These are all wood cubes. But again, in the deluxe edition that I have, these have all been replaced. So we're going to set those aside. A little bag of things we don't need. So I have mine separated out, all the small cubes in one bag, because these are what you're going to use at the start of the game. And I've got some things in here that shouldn't be. So you can see here our wooden cubes, our keys have been replaced with ones that actually have keys on them. And our goblins, boblins, whatever they're called, have little faces on them. So these are what replaced the wooden cubes here. The dragon is also replaced in the deluxe edition. The mean little dragon guy. But because we backed the Kickstarter, we don't even need him. So into the bag he goes. Our Kickstarter edition came with an awesome metal dragon. So he goes in our starter set here. Then all our various cubes, you've got gold, You've got the clear ones for diamonds. There's sapphires. And the marbleized ones here are our pillars, which you're going to use to make up your dungeon room. And you basically drop these on the table. And you can't see on a black doozy background like this. You want something solid one color that's easy to see. But you're going to draw your lines between the gray pillars. Anything that's in that triangle you make, you get to take. And if there's monsters in there, you take them. They're going to damage your health and so on. And the idea is to loot as much as you can without killing yourself and try to complete your quests there. So we have another bag, which is our larger cubes. And these you set aside. These are going to be the cubes that get added to the box to be drawn from each turn and add to your dungeon. And in here, there's our trolls, which replace the larger cubes. There's a couple more of the walls. Most notably are the treasure chests, which when you loot one of these, you have to have a key and one of these, and at the end of the game you're going to roll them, and whatever number comes up is how much you get for them. But you have to have a key to unlock them. There's another key here. And then some more of everything else in there as well. Now, I was saying with our deluxe edition, instead of the colored meeples, we went one step farther here and we have these guys, which are awesome. And they are actual character specific meeples. And there's one for each of the races in the game. Even the little goblin. And depending on the mode you're playing, there's a bunch of different game modes. They allow for you to move around the dungeon. There's a teamwork one where you're trying to make a room containing a guy. And I'm not exactly sure how that one works because I haven't played that yet. But ideally, you're going to be placing these guys in the dungeon that's made up of the cubes on the table. And then there's points involved with making a room that contains a guy. So you're trying to get your guys where you think they're going to go. And like I said, it's really hard to see on this busy play mat here, but you play this on a solid mat, and these are going to be dropped onto the table, and they spread way out. And then your dungeon room is, you take these 3 squares here, everything in that triangle is inside your room, so all of this you're going to grab, and that becomes your loot. This black one shouldn't even be in there. It's for the single player game. But so you got some gold there, a couple diamonds, a sapphire, and a key. And your turn order of who goes first is based on your race, on your initiative order up here in the corner. However, as you gather treasure throughout each turn, you're going to have these on your player card, and the treasure that you're carrying will slow you down because you're carrying added weight. So it changes up the play order. To represent play order, at the beginning of a round, you're going to check those initiative orders and then distribute the turn order tokens here accordingly. You have to recheck that each round because, like I said, it changes depending on how much treasure you're carrying. Then we also have the player tokens, which go with these guys. So instead of using the generic colored tokens here for like the scoreboard, you've got player specific ones for each character. So they go with those. Again, that's a deluxe edition component. And then these go with the solo game. These are the relics you're trying to find in the dungeon to pick up to complete the single player campaign. Now, due to the way the game works, it's really hard to show actual gameplay on a video like this. There are some gameplay videos up where you can see people actually playing, where they're dropping the dice and going through all of the turn functions. I just wanted to show off the components, the really cool stuff that's in here. I love the fact that they managed to make everything out of cubes. There are different sizes. You can see there's a large and a small cube. And the only difference in those is to designate the small cubes are what the initial dungeon starts as. And then at the beginning of each turn, when you go to take your turn, depending on the player count, you're going to grab a couple of these and drop them into the dungeon to expand it each turn and make more options available. So the dungeon slowly grows over the course of the game, and there's always stuff in there to loot. There's also that dragon you got to watch out for, the really cool metal dragon cube there. And you need a shield in order to fight him, which is a specific card or a specific cube. So you got to pick one of these up. Otherwise, he can kick your butt, basically. And then you got the, or actually, I don't think you're even allowed to try without the shield. And then you got the various other guys, the trolls and goblins. When you get them, when you loot them, they actually go on your card over top of your life. If I can get it to stay. But the trolls take up 2. So they're going to cover 2 of your hearts there. And the little guys take up 1. So they cover 1 heart. And if you get to 0 hearts, you're knocked out. So you got to keep that in mind where you're going too, so you don't get yourself knocked out of the game early. And then, as I said, each race and each ability has a special option down here which changes some rules. So this allows you to count a monster as a pillar. So normally you're looking for these gray marbleized cubes to be used as pillars. You could instead use one of the monsters in the dungeon as a pillar to design where your room's going to be. It's a cool ability for the warrior. Every one of those is different. Every one of the race ones is different. So you mix and match, and it makes for a lot of different combos there. Combine that with the different quests, so you never know what your opponent's actually going for. Should you take a bunch of gold, even though they really don't get you much because of your quest, just to deny them for somebody else from getting them? Or should you go specifically and try to get as many of the ones that you want? Maybe you got the one that needs a full set of one of each to get the points. So you really have to plan out and think about how you want to go. But at the same time, you got to avoid the dragon. You got to avoid the monsters in there, because you don't want to get too many of those in your room getting too greedy. Overall, though, I really like the game. There's a lot of variety. It plays really quick. There's only 3 turns, and then you add up your totals. So you can play multiple games in a very quick amount of time. And it's a lot of fun, and like I said, the variety keeps it fresh and new, and every game is different because of the way you're dropping things. Cubes bounce and roll, and the one thing you want to watch out for, though, is you need a lip on your table to keep things from rolling off, or you want to make sure you don't have any floor vents or heating vents, because these cubes are small and you're going to lose them. They're going to bounce off the table. They're going to roll around. It's part of the game. Just keep that in mind. If you have pets, if you drop one on the floor, you got to get it before they run off with it. So that's something to keep in mind. Overall, though, it's a really fun game, and I'm glad I picked it up. It's pretty cheap, too, which was surprising for how much game you get in here. I like the abstract nature. I like to think of it as like a radar, and you're looking at blips on the radar, and that's what you see. Monsters in the room, loot in the room, treasure, keys. That's what you're seeing from your top-down view. Also, keep in mind that the treasure chests are completely worthless if you loot them if you don't get the keys to unlock them. When you're doing scoring at the end of the game, you have to have a set of these. Then you roll the die and you get whatever comes up for points. So you can still roll a 1, which really sucks, or you can get a 6, which is really nice. But without the key and the chest, either one of these, keys are worthless without chests, chests are worthless without keys. Gotta keep that in mind. We had so many people looting chests and not getting keys, only to find out they couldn't do anything with them later. So, but yeah, overall, it's a blast of a game. There's a ton of game in a tiny little box, and you can't go wrong with this one if you're into dungeon crawl type games. Even though there really isn't, it's a very unique game, and I like the way that they went about it. And once you learn the colors and what's what, you can play it really quickly too. Now, there are a couple add-ons for the Kickstarter on top of the deluxe edition, and kept them aside. Some of these were stretch goals, some of them I paid for. I'm not sure which ones were which, so keep that in mind. I'm not even sure if you can get some of these anymore, but the shiny purple cubes is the first one. And at the beginning of the game, you're going to roll to see what your shiny purple cubes are for that game. And there's Potion of Stamina, they could be a Mimic, Crystal Golem, Magic Bolt, Secret Door, Dragon Egg. And those come with 2 large and 2 small of the shiny purple cubes. The small ones get added to the initial drop of the game, and the large ones get added to the cubes that get added later on. The next one we have here are the skeletons. I believe this one was a paid add-on, and this adds skeletons to your dungeon. I believe these replace you remove 4 small monsters from the game, add 3 skeletons, or you can just add them in if you want more monsters, so it does make the game quite a bit more difficult. And then the rest of the skeletons are put aside later because they can come into play. Whenever a skeleton's collected, the player immediately drops 2 more into the dungeon, and each skeleton takes 1 health that you loot, and they score 0 points. So they're basically worth nothing. They attack you and they multiply. Fun little addition to the game, and they come with these white cubes with little skulls on them. And that was an expansion that you could add on. I got it just because they were fun. So the next one here, and I don't remember if this was an add-on or a stretch goal, is the gelatinous cubes. And these guys, you randomly take two blocks out, and they're going to replace those at the beginning of the game. They get a cube put on top of them. They look really cool too. They're like this milky clear. And they get a treasure chest on them, so whenever you loot them, you also gain the treasure chest, although they take 2 health from you. They also score for 2 points, and you're getting a chest on each of them, so they were a cool addition to the game. Then we have our little sheet here showing the stuff that's added in the deluxe edition, those screen printed cubes, the premium guys, and then the shiny purple expansion and the gelatinous expansion. So maybe they came with the premium edition. Then the skeletons were an add-on. That might be how it worked. We had 2 additional quests too that were some kind of promo. I'm not sure where these ones came from. Cultist Curse and the Prince's Prize. And there was a promo card, which is a new class called the Phase Shifter. I managed to pick this up on the Board Game Geek store for cheap, but it adds another class to your game that you can't otherwise get. And I'm not even sure what they do. Allow you to move a pillar 1 game card length away. That pillar must be used to form your room. So it allows you to rearrange the board a little bit. That's kind of cool. And then our 2 add-on quests to add a little bit more variety. Anyway, that's a look at Dungeon Drop. And the deluxe edition here has a lot of stuff that I said weren't included in the base one. Mainly these guys here and some of the screen printed monsters and things. And keep that stuff in mind. You might not get all of this depending on the version you get, but it is a lot of fun. It is a lot of game in a tiny little box, and I'm glad I picked it up. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for our look at Dungeon Drop from Phase Shift Games. As always, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.